Welcome to this post-landing news conference for Space Shuttle Atlantis' STS-129 mission to the International Space Station. Joining us here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center are three briefers who will give us the latest on Atlantis' mission following this morning's landing here in Florida. First off, we have the NASA Associate Administrator for Space Operations, Bill Gerstenmaier.
Morning.
To his left is the Space Shuttle Launch Integration Manager, Mike Moses.
Good morning.
And finally, we have the Space Shuttle Launch Director, Mike Leinbach.
Good morning.
We'll open up with comments and then take questions. Mr. Gerstenmaier.
Thanks, Howard. It's great to be here, and congratulations to the team that did so well on this vehicle to get it ready to go fly, and the team that supported all the activities on orbit. And this was just an amazing mission. An on-time launch, on-time landing, got all the get-ahead tasks on the EVAs and the spacewalks. Just a phenomenal team effort across the board. And we had a couple false alarms on board Space Station, and get to see all the international teams work together as a seamless team to keep things moving forward and not interrupt the spacewalk was just an amazing activity. So the folks did great. The vehicle did good. The folks that did all the processing down here did a great job giving us a very good vehicle. I also am reminded that some of the hardware that flew on this vehicle, some of our production folks have been taken voluntary retirement, or some of them have been laid off, and some of the hardware that they worked on actually flew on this flight. So I consider some of the folks that supported us in the past and have had to give up their jobs to keep the budget in line were part of this team that helped us get this hardware to go fly, and a special thanks goes to those folks that supported us in the program, and I want to thank them for what they've done. It's been a great year for us, lots of good things. If you look for the remainder part of the year, there's still a lot of activity in front of us. We've got the Soyuz landing on the 1st of December. On the 8th of December, we have the instrumentation section that delivered the MRM-2 module. We'll undock from Space Station and re-enter and come back. Then on the 21st, we have another Soyuz launch, bringing three more crew members up to Space Station. In there, we'll also move the orbiter over to the VAB to get ready for the next flight next year. And then also we'll use Dexter for the first time sometime in December to change out a remote power controller module on the board the space station. So if I look forward to the remaining several weeks of this year, there's still a lot of activity in front of us, still a very busy time, but the teams are focused and we're moving forward and doing great things. So I look forward to your questions. Mike?
Thanks. Let's see. Yeah, I'll echo that. It's really great to be here. It was a fantastic mission. We talked to you post-launch about all the great work that the teams here at Kennedy and across the country did to get the hardware ready to launch and fly. Now that we're on the ground, you can look back and see what a great job the teams back in Houston who built, planned, and executed the mission. The astronauts and the trainers who support them did a fantastic job in getting them ready to go. You talk about a pretty smooth mission. When you build all your timelines and your plans ahead of time, you really try to make sure that everything goes smooth, but there's always a couple little hiccups. A really good example, though, that you did your job really good up front was this flight where there was no major replan effort. Every night when the planning shift came on, they kind of just were tweaking things. They weren't ever throwing the whole thing out and starting over again. So it says the teams pre-launch did a really good job of setting up a good flight plan for the crew to execute. So congrats to them and all the hard work they do back there, especially over the Thanksgiving holiday with the vehicle up in orbit. But it is great to have Atlantis back here at Kennedy, and we're going to get it ready to go. And as Bill alluded to, we're getting ready to move Endeavour to be ready for STS-130 coming up in February. We've been talking long-term on the manifest a little bit. We still look like we're in really good shape to finish out in a reasonable amount of time here next year. We're going to tweak Endeavour's launch date a little bit. Right now it's on the calendars for February 4th. We're looking at moving that to probably the 6th. We haven't officially decided what that number's going to be. We wanted to wait till we had landing here and know how the ripple effect works. But we're going to basically move a couple days, and that's to help deconflict with a progress that's going on, and there's no real push to hold that launch date. So rather than trying to deconflict there, that we'll move it on our side. So again, we're still talking it, but we're looking at potentially moving a couple days. And other than that, it's been really good. Bill talks about the end of this year being real busy in station operations. We look to next year; it's going to be a very busy year in shuttle operations as we fly the remaining manifest. This is 2010 and the end of the shuttle program. So we have a lot to do. We need to stay diligent and keep focused on what we're doing. And that's all I had today.
Okay. Well, the orbiter looks really good. We got to go out and walk around, greet the crew. The orbiter itself, just a few minor little tile damages. No big deal there. It'll be a quick, easy turnaround we expect from the tile perspective. Our thermal protection system engineers, I talked to a couple of them out on the runway. They're all smiles based on the condition of the ship. We did talk to the crew. They're all doing fine, and they reported that Nicole Stott is doing fine as well, so good news there. We're doing our standard tow operations out there now. We should be able to get the orbiter in the orbiter processing facility within a couple, 3 hours or so. We'll get the cryo offload that we need to get done today and then be able to power down the ship and give most of the team tomorrow off. So everything's going really, really well. The orbiter looks great. It's fantastic to be part of this team. I'm very, very proud of Team Atlantis, and we'll start her turnaround now that she's on the ground and looking forward to her next mission. And all's going well. It's good.
Okay, we'll now take questions. Please wait for the microphone, name, news affiliation, and whom you'd like to answer your question. And we'll start on this side and work. I guess start with Marcia.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. I'm wondering, did any of you get to see Nicole firsthand and what she had to say, or is it too soon? No? No.
We didn't
Oh,
get
okay.
to see.
But the report from the other crew members was she's doing perfectly fine.
And can you spring Randy Bresnick loose today to go back to Houston, or does he have to really wait till tomorrow to see his baby?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to send him early or not.
We don't know.
Don't know.
Okay, Irene.
Thank you. Irene Klotz with Reuters. Have a couple of questions for Bill. After the Expedition 21 crew leaves, there'll just be 2 people on station for 3 weeks, and it's been, 3 years or so since that. The station's a lot bigger. Can you just talk a little bit about the challenges that you're going to have trying to manage that whole outpost just with 2 people? Thanks.
Yeah, the teams have looked at that pretty carefully, and I think that, there's not a lot of activity going on then. There'll be some software uploads, some other things, but we tried to move all the major activities that were occurring during the period when we only have 2 crew on orbit to other periods when there'll be more crew. So I think the time it looks pretty good, looks pretty reasonable, that the teams are prepared. We're ready to cut back a little bit on our operations and still be able to do a little bit of research even with just the 2 crew members on orbit. So again, I think they've been planning for this, they're ready for it, and we'll see how it comes out, but it looks very feasible when we look at it on paper.
Thanks. And the other ones for me are the NASA was supposed to award the $50 million of TARP funding for the commercial crew study grants this month. It's pretty close to the end of the month. Do you know anything about the status of that, and also anything about the prospects of adding that 6th shuttle resupply flight made from the bits, the refurbished tank parts that you had spoken about before? Thank you.
In terms of the stimulus money, I'm not sure where that stands. That would be in the Exploration Systems Mission Directorate, and we'd have to ask them where that sits in terms of the award. In terms of the other thing, we're still doing the planning just for the contingency flight the way it is today, and that's the way it sits on the manifest. It's there as a contingency flight. If we need to fly that flight, we thought it would be prudent, as we talked about before, to have an MPLM in there to carry spares to replenish station and restock station. So if we had some kind of situation where we had to do contingency crew support and keep the station crew on orbit for a period of time, we wanted to have the backup shuttle to have the ability to restock station, and that's why we added the MPLM to the manifest.
James.
Couple of questions. First, I wondered if each of you had to pick one highlight from 2009 for your now complete missions. Could you attempt to do that?
These guys can go first.
Gosh, one highlight from a great year like this. No, we met our milestones. We got the Hubble servicing done. We had 2 vehicles ready to go, Simon, on that one. That was big for us here locally, and really for the whole program and the agency as well. Seeing the pictures come down from Hubble, that may be a highlight for me personally.
Yeah, and I'd say, if speaking from the program perspective, the highlight would be that we're sitting here in November and we did everything we needed to do this year. So manifest-wise, we got it all done. Personally, I'm still in shock and awe after every launch and every landing. That's still personally a really good thing to me. So I wouldn't pick any one of them because I don't want to have favorites. But right, each launch, each landing is pretty special to me.
Yeah, I think I can't pick one, but if you look at the year in general, this is an amazing year for us with the Hubble flow, the Ares 1X in there, the activities that have occurred on station, the problems we had with some weather and some other problems, the gup leaks, some other things we had. You look at all those and none of them really, I mean, they're all tremendous accomplishments by the team, but then you aggregate all those together and then you look at this year, and this has just been an amazing year for us. But again, I kind of don't rest on our laurels. I look back on all that stuff. As I described to you, there's a lot of work to go the remaining couple weeks of this year, and we need to stay focused on that and keep moving forward. So it's impossible to pick one event for me.
In the front row, Evan?
I know you kind of like to approach each launch the same, but it seems inevitable that next year the intensity, public interest, all the focus on the missions is going to grow as each one passes more and more and more. So I'm just wondering, what are you anticipating? What do you think that's going to be like? And are there any things you're going to do to try and handle that as it comes?
Again, from my perspective, I think the important thing is to really take the missions just one at a time like we've been doing. Also to not rest on our laurels. When we start thinking things are going well and they're going easy, that's when we start slipping a little bit and getting in trouble. So we need to avoid that tendency. I think the other tendency we have to avoid is putting work off. In other words, we only got one more flight, so maybe we don't need to really check this thing out as fully as we did before. Those kind of things, we need to really avoid that. We need to treat each one of these like there's a series of them coming. If we need to do some more instrumentation and add some things like we did in the Stinger where we added the accelerometer, we'll continue to add those. If we need to do some additional tests, we'll go ahead and continue to add those tests. But we get in trouble when we start thinking, well, there's only 5 more flights. Why would I want to do this test, or why would I want to get this extra information? We need to get that extra information to stay hungry, in my words, to keep looking for problems that don't even appear on the horizon yet to allow us to continue to fly safe. So that's kind of the message to the team. From a station standpoint, we need to really get the troubleshooting done on the hardware, on the ECLA system, the urine processor, the distillation assembly, the carbon dioxide removal system. These next flights are a unique opportunity for us to find problems, repair them, return them to the ground, get new components up, and kind of get out of the shake-it-down cruise of that equipment and get it up and operating. So typically when you bring new systems online, there's problems at the beginning. We need to get through that kind of early problem resolution while the shuttle's still here and get that behind us so we have a very stable station that can do tremendous research in the future.
Okay. Want to come to the front one, then we'll go back to Bobby after.
Hi, Eben Brown, Fox News Radio. You had mentioned some minor damage on the heat tiles. Where was it, and what may have caused it, and how big of a deal really is it? And the other question I had is with 1 year to go, really, with the program. How do the three of you feel? This has been your baby for a certain amount of time. Obviously, it's got to hit you a little emotionally that this program, this 30-something-year program, is ending.
Let's see, I guess I'll take the tile question first. The couple 3 damage sites I saw were maybe on the order of an inch big, and we always do a very, very detailed inspection. That report is due out this afternoon, probably around dinner time or so, at least the preliminary. But what I saw was a very, very clean vehicle. The base heat shield back behind the main engines had some very, very minor damage to the tiles there, probably from aspiration at main engine ignition. We've seen all that before. That's probably just top coat repair, no big deal there. The ship looks really, really clean. Team Atlantis will have a pretty easy turnaround from the TPS perspective, I would expect.
And I don't think we saw anything in the tile damage that we hadn't seen on orbit, so that was probably ascent debris damage that we'd already seen during inspections. And then talking about the end of the program, from a perspective of moving forward, like Bill said, we have some the management challenges we face this next year are a little more unique than normal. But our team is very centered. We've kind of built our team to be mission to mission centered and to keep your head down and do that tactical day-to-day work. And so that'll get us through this, and we'll just keep flying each flight, and then we'll be done. and then we'll be done. So from that standpoint, there's not a lot of things that I'm doing that are looking downrange really far and saying, oh man, we got to make sure. More of it's in the management area. Like, for example, we were just talking with the teams as they go through some of these processing flows. Atlantis is going to turn around and be ready for the launch on need vehicle, but when Endeavour comes back, as we do that next flow, that'll be the last flow for Endeavour. So as we do things, that'll be the last time that we do them, and we need to be vigilant and not let things slip past us when we do that, and not get too caught up in the fact that it is the end, because it does have to fly one more time and it has to fly safe, and there's. So there's time to stop and reflect afterwards, and I think that's the way the whole team's kind of set up, is we're going to finish the manifest, and then we'll stop and look back at what we did, and rather than trying to look ahead and anticipate and prepare for it.
And I'd say, kind of from my perspective, you know, I'm tremendously blessed to get to work with this team and to be part of this system that gets to fly these vehicles as we do. I'm going to cherish every moment and every second I have with this team to do as much as we can and get the most enjoyment out of what we're doing. There's no guarantees in life. You know, things can go away for other reasons, for, you know, accidents, other things can happen. So I just take each day and extremely appreciative of the privilege that I get, that I've been given by the taxpayers of this country to go do something that's really remarkable. And so I just look at that to do my absolute best to give 110% and just take each flight as it goes, and don't worry too much about the future.
Over to Bobby.
Bobby Block with Orlando Sentinel with a question and a follow-up for Gerst. Last time you were here, you were talking about how important commercial was for cargo. So we're near the end of '09, and I wanted to know if you could give us an update of how that COTS program is and what you expect, because I think we've got some milestone flights supposedly coming next year.
Yeah, there's some, I think you'll see Falcon 9 is getting ready to potentially go fly the first part of next year. It's not actually part of the COTS program or part of the commercial resupply services, but they're going to do one of their first flights next year, and that'll be tremendously important to see how that goes. I know they're starting to get some of their hardware here together at the Cape, and you should talk to the SpaceX folks and see how they're doing in processing, but they're getting prepared to go do that launch next year. So it'll be very interesting to see how well that first flight goes and to see how the COTS demonstrations occur next year. So that's a critical activity for us to watch and follow that activity as it moves forward.
One more question. There are rumors flying that you may be thinking of resigning soon. I want to know if there's any truth to that.
There's no truth to that at all. So, if you listen to my previous words, right, how blessed I was, right, I believe those. That doesn't say that somebody couldn't force me out, but other than that, I don't have any plans to do anything. I really enjoy what I do. I love what I do, and I love what the team. To get a chance to work with this team is really something special.
Okay, front row.
Stefano Coledan with RAI Italian Radio and Television. For Mr. Gustermeyer, which one of the MPLMs is going to fly to the station? Is it Leonardo or Rafael, as far as you know?
I don't remember which one's going to be permanently attached. You know, I don't know. We can find out afterwards. I don't know.
Give us later on, I believe. We'll get the confirmation for you.
Howard will.
Okay, thank you. And another question. Since that module was not designed to be permanently in space, I know that it has shields on it, but will the astronauts have continuous access to it, or will it be closed when there is no need for the module to be open?
What the teams are doing is we've worked with Olinia and with the Italian Space Agency, and we're going to we removed all the outer debris panels, and then we're going to install some Kevlar blankets underneath those debris panels to provide extra micrometeoroid debris protection for that module. So we will beef up the outside of it so it has more debris protection than a typical MPLM does, and that'll allow it to stay on orbit. We're also looking at removing some systems from it to make it a little bit lighter weight, so it will be able to carry the same amount of equipment, even though we're adding some extra weight for the blankets that are getting on the outside. So it should be able to be open, and it should be able to be used for the crew as an additional area to be used on station, and it'll have the proper micrometeoroid debris protection on it.
Just one quick question. When is it supposed to fly?
It's the last flight, so it's September 16th of next year.
And it is Leonardo.
Jim Siegel, Celebration Independent Newspaper. I have two questions. First of all, regarding Nicole Schott, could you describe a little bit about the process for reorienting her after she's been in space for several months?
See, I don't actually know the details that they go through, but basically, of course, you probably know them better.
Yeah, but she'll go through a pretty. When she goes back to Houston, she'll be on kind of a restricted exercise activity, and just kind of a rehabilitation program. They have a whole series of rehabilitation activities that they go through that she gets more and more activities added to her regime as time goes on. And you could really talk to the medical folks about the specifics of how it is, but it's kind of just a slow reintroduction back into 1G, so you don't do things like go jogging or do some things around. There may be some restrictions on driving a car initially for a little bit, for a day or two, and then those things get restricted or get removed, and then you can go back to more activities. So it's just kind of a readaptation back to 1G, and it's a fairly structured activity, and the idea is to make sure that you don't injure something or set yourself back as you're getting back to being in 1G.
And also, I understand that there may be a piece of Delta rocket or something kind of floating around near the space station that may require the space station to take some sort of move away. Could you describe how that is decided and where that stands at the moment?
We're tracking the object. We were supposed to get some tracking updates around 11 o'clock this morning. I didn't hear those, but we'll see where those are. And then the teams will go look. They're planning our maneuver potentially for tomorrow if we need to do a maneuver. And what we'll do is we'll adjust space station. We'll either raise the altitude or lower it a little bit to avoid the piece of debris that's in the general vicinity of space station. Typically we get the good tracking data, and then we determine whether it's close enough to station that it warrants a maneuver, or it just is going to be far enough away from station it doesn't require a maneuver. It's a little more complicated now because we have the Soyuz landing coming up. So if we make a big change to the orbit, then that will affect a little bit the landing time and a little bit of the landing planning. The same with the Soyuz that's coming up on December 23rd. Is going to dock to station. We've got to be careful how we go maneuver space station. You know, if we raise it too much or too low, that can affect the Soyuz and its rendezvous profile coming up. So we have to balance the landing, the other Soyuz launch, and then make sure that we've tweaked it enough that this object won't come near station. So we take those three things into consideration to determine what the right maneuver is to go do. But the first thing will be to get the data and see if a maneuver is even required.
That maneuver typically be 100 feet, a mile? How much would you move the space station by?
It'll be probably, I don't know, less than a kilometer. It'll be fairly small because we don't need to get big clearance. So what you do is you just make a little tweak, and then orbital mechanics will then drift the two objects further apart. So it doesn't take a big maneuver to do that, but the size of the maneuver will be determined by those other constraints. We can't go too high, too low, or it can affect one of the other maneuvers.
Thank you.
Any questions this side? Make sure. Yep.
Terrell Brown, CBS News in New York. Just curious, how likely is that maneuver that we've been speaking about so far? Just based on what you know now.
I don't know. I don't want to speculate, because if I knew the tracking data, then I could tell you. Based on what I heard yesterday, I don't know. We get these quite a bit, so I don't know. The key data will be today, because they would have gotten good detailed tracking over the evening, and it would have been reviewed today, and then I could say with certainty. But right now, I can't really speculate on whether it's likely to maneuver or not. And it's not a big thing for us to maneuver. We always prepare for these. We're always tracking objects. We're always getting ready to go maneuver. So this is a pretty standard thing for us to do. And if we have to do it, we'll go do it, and it's not a big impact to us.
And like Bill was talking about, that data is pretty important. If it's coming close to you, but it's a stable orbit that you can predict and track accurately, and you know exactly where it is, then it's a lot easier to not maneuver, because you know the miss distance will be good. If it's an object that doesn't have a lot of tracking data on it and it's unstable, then you want to be a little more careful, and we'd probably move a little earlier or a little further than we thought we had to. So waiting to see the quality of that tracking data is really important to the decision that comes next, to say that, yep, that's exactly where we thought it was, it's looking stable, everything's good, and then it'll be a lot easier to then make the next move.
And I do want to speak a little bit more about today's mission. You all spoke earlier about the year that you've had. Fantastic missions. And even with this 11-day mission, if you read the reports, it was success after success, it seemed. Even Mission Control in Houston this morning spoke about clear skies. They weren't quite sure if they'd seen clear skies like this for a landing before. So is this the picture-perfect ending for a year that has gone so well for NASA?
Well, that's it. Yeah, you can't quite answer it because he's got space station to take care of too. So
Yeah, see, I don't know. I will tell you during the mission, we call it scary quiet, right? So when things are going really, really well, we get kind of scared, right? Because we've been in this business long enough that there's always something else out there that we haven't thought about that can be a problem to us. So we're kind of superstitious in a way, and we don't talk too much about when things are going really good. Like, I was thinking all kinds of good thoughts for this landing, but then I'm thinking, like, well, I can't really express that to anybody until we've actually occurred for the landing. So now it's kind of the same way for the rest of the year. This has been a great year for us, but all those activities I read to you at the beginning, or I talked to you about at the beginning, all those have to occur, and those are all critical to us. So my focus is on those future activities. So you're only as good as the events that are coming up to you in the future. So we don't. We take an internal quiet pride that the teams did a great job, but you don't think too much about that, and you just keep moving forward with the challenges you got in front of you.
It's been good, though.
It has been.
It's been a great year.
It's been a great year. And what's really great about it is I think the problems we've overcome. You know, if you look at all the difficulties we had, the manifesting, the juggling of the vehicles, the teams have done just a great job. The problems on orbit that came up that the teams worked around, even this false depress and false fire on board space station, those could have interrupted the spacewalk, and we could have not been able to accomplish the spacewalk. But the teams were so well prepared, that the crew had to break. They were in a pre-breathe, or in a camp-out protocol where they're breathing lower pressure oxygen and nitrogen to purge the nitrogen out of their system to prevent getting the bends. When that got interrupted, they no longer could do that. They had to go to a different method to purge the nitrogen out of their system. It's exercise pre-breathe protocol, where they put a mask on and they do an exercise protocol that forces the nitrogen out of your system to prevent you from getting the bends. The teams defaulted from the standard plan to this new exercise pre-breathe protocol, which we probably hadn't done for about a year, seamlessly. And I mean, they just moved right to that, moved right forward, and it didn't even impact the EVA. So on the outside, it looks like everything went perfectly well. It only went perfectly well because these folks were honed to that level of perfection. They were on their A game. I mean, they were really ready to go do this mission, and that was evidenced by the results. So sometimes it looks easy, but I think it's only easy because we're prepared, and then we get in trouble when we think it's going to be easy in the future, and we forget about that preparation piece. So it's like going into that championship game. You better be ready to go, and you better be prepared, and you better really be up there, because you can be your own worst enemy or their own worst team yourself. So we just got to stay at that top level of performance, and that's our goal as a management team, is how do we keep our team and ourselves at that peak of performance.
Do you have any more questions that won't jinx us? All right, one more, James. I think we have one more question, I think, from James Dean from Florida Today, I think.
This could be a jinxer, but Mike, you mentioned you're looking pretty good for flying out, and I think you said a reasonable time. Do you have like a percentage confidence number for that, or can you give us some odds on time 2010 or 2011 fly out?
Yeah, let's see. Well, the current manifest has that last flight on September 16th. So STS-133 launched on 9/16, and that's still a very much a supportable manifest. We looked at the spacings, and everything looks good. And so odds-wise, I would tell you that the odds are high that we'll make that. Now, the thing we'd like to have is that wiggle room that we always like to have. And you kind of saw, when you look at it as a flight by flight, I could take a week slip here or a month slip there, and I can usually recover that. And the example being this launch, a year ago we were supposed to launch in October. We got here a year later, and we launched it in November. So at the end of a year, we launched a month late. So you kind of look ahead and say, well, we'll probably have the same kind of year next year if it all goes well. But you look back and said, we had some pretty good hurdles that we had to overcome, and still only lost a month. So am I going to make 9/16? Maybe. I think we have a really good shot at it. The thing that's more important to me is to be able to from a headquarters level and from a political level, to get the pressure to go away to say, if I don't, that flight's canceled. And so just so that doesn't enter and creep into anybody's mindset, if we know we can go a little longer than we need to, not that we're going to stretch intentionally, but it's nice to know that when that little hurdle comes, it's okay. When you really lay down next year, there's the beta cutouts and the Soyuz Progress cutouts are really the windows that you need to stay in. As long as we can stay within those windows, we'll make our manifest for next year.
Is there still any pressure of the sort you just described, or do you feel that's
no? It's just I don't think officially we've gotten the check written yet. But no, from a policy standpoint, I think everybody's saying we're going to be able to do that, and so there's no pressure there.
Okay, is that it? All right, not hearing any more questions. Our next news conference for Atlantis' STS-129 mission will be with the astronauts themselves. Currently, the crew news conference is set for 4 p.m. Eastern, but it is possible that it could go earlier. So please stay tuned to NASA TV for any updates on the start of the crew news conference time. Thanks for joining us.